Angel Reese, though. What I found most interesting about this list is where ESPN ranks their face of the league. Unfortunately for Angel Reese, the polish seems to be melting off the turd. ESPN has tried to convince us that Angel Reese is the face of the WNBA. Not only is the matriarch of Me-Bounds the face of the league, according to the media, Angel Reese is the most dominant basketball player in the world.
Angel Reese just got hit with the kind of ESPN reality check that fans do not forget. For months, she was pushed as one of the biggest faces of the WNBA. The personality, the headline, the star who was supposed to help carry the league into a new era. But now, ESPN has put out a ranking that makes that entire story look very different.
In case you're wondering, Angel Reese, still not good from the field. 3 for 7, 10 points. I mean, good God almighty. Not good. By the way, Mystics defeated the Dream. Defeated the Dream. It was ugly. No doubt about it. Speaking of ugly, let's just address this. When does lame-ass Atlanta Dream fix the lighting and change the court color?
Because while Angel Reese is suddenly being questioned, Caitlin Clark is still the name pulling the attention, the ratings, the crowds, and the pressure. And that is where this gets uncomfortable. Because this is no longer just about whether Angel Reese is popular. She is popular. It is no longer just about whether she has fans. She does. The real question is much sharper than that. If Angel Reese is still supposed to be one of the top stars in the WNBA, why does it feel like ESPN is already turning the page? And why does that page keep landing on Caitlin Clark? That is the part nobody can ignore anymore.
Not rocket science to see that since her arrival and the rest of that 2024 class, the WNBA has skyrocketed.
Finally! We have a WNBA player willing to admit that Caitlin Clark is the reason for the elevation of pretend basketball into the mainstream. Finally, we have a WNBA player willing to admit Caitlin Clark is the reason that they are no longer making minimum wage.
Angel Reese entered the league with massive attention. She had the college rivalry. She had the personality. She had the social media following. She had the attitude that made people react, whether they loved her or hated her. And in today's sports world, that matters. Attention is currency. Drama sells. Personality creates clicks. But there is a dangerous line in sports, because being famous is not the same thing as being the best. And that is where the Angel Reese conversation has started to crack, because the media image was moving fast, maybe too fast. Reese was being talked about like a ready-made superstar, a league-changing figure, a player who could sit at the front of the WNBA's new era. But when the games actually started speaking, the story got a lot messier. The rebounding is real, the hustle is real, the effort is real. Nobody can take that away from her, but the offensive problems are also real. The missed layups, the rough finishes, the inefficient shooting nights.
Angel Reese preseason part 2, let's get it! So many fans in the stands, it's all filled to the brim to see you Me-Bound! You can really tell she's been in the lab all off season working on that explosiveness. Look right here, she gets almost 2 inches off the ground. Me-Bound! Burn! She's got this nasty trick shot where she hip fires layups from 2 feet away, like that. Burn! That shot is her bread and butter. Butter, my God! Bang! Her form is cooked. That ball is so far away, it's in another solar system. Maybe she makes it. Nope. Bang! No. Someone tell her there's not an incentive in your contract that pays you more money for missing layups. That's a prey-up. Bang! I wanted to see a baby giraffe try to play Twister. I go to the circus. What is that? Bang!
The moments where she looks powerful on the glass, but uncomfortable when she has to score cleanly through defenders. That is not hate. That is basketball. And that is why this ESPN ranking hit so hard. Because for a long time, fans were told one version of the story. Angel Reese was not just a good player. She was a face. She was a star. She was a major part of the WNBA's rise. But when ESPN had to actually rank the players, suddenly the hype did not feel as loud. Suddenly the conversation changed.
The Atlanta Dream ended up besting the Chicago Sky. And I want to talk about Angel Reese's performance. Overall, in the box score, it looks like she did pretty good. 8.7 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, but she went 2 for 7 field goal percentage, shooting 28% from the field and 4 of 8 from the free throw, 50% on free throws. All right. Angel Reese is still doing Angel Reese things as she missed wide open shots, things that she should have made, she didn't make.
And that is humiliating, not because Angel Reese has no value, she clearly does, but because the gap between the media push and the basketball reality became impossible to hide. If someone is truly the face of the league, you do not need to keep reminding everyone every 5 minutes. The audience feels it, the arena feels it, the ratings feel it, the league feels it. And that is exactly why Caitlin Clark makes this entire thing so uncomfortable. Because Caitlin Clark does not need the same level of explanation. Her impact announces itself. When she plays, people watch. When she struggles, people debate it. When she gets fouled, the internet explodes. When she hits a deep three, it becomes a moment. When she walks into an arena, the energy changes. That is not normal attention. That is gravity. And that is the difference. Angel Reese has fame. Caitlin Clark has gravity. Fame gets people talking for a moment. Gravity pulls the whole league into the conversation. And right now, Caitlin Clark is the player doing that. That does not mean every other player is irrelevant. That does not mean the WNBA should only promote one person. That does not mean Angel Reese cannot grow into a stronger player. But it does mean the league hierarchy is not as complicated as some people want it to be. Caitlin Clark is the one moving the needle. She is the one turning ordinary games into national conversations. She is the one making casual fans care about matchups they never would have watched before. And that is why ESPN's shift feels bigger than just a ranking. It feels like a correction, a quiet admission that the original narrative may have gone too far. Because there is a difference between wanting Angel Reese to be a top star and actually proving that she is one right now. That is the uncomfortable part. Reese can rebound, she can bring energy, she can talk, she can create emotion. But when fans are watching the games, they are also seeing the flaws. They are seeing the offensive limitations. They are seeing the difference between a high-profile player and a player who bends the entire league around her presence. And once fans see that difference, it becomes very hard to sell them a different version of reality. That is why this moment matters. It is not just Angel Reese being criticized. It is Angel Reese being redefined. And sometimes that is even more painful, because when a player is attacked, fans can rally around them. But when a player is redefined, the whole conversation changes. Suddenly, Reese is not being judged as the face of the league. She is being judged as a player who still has major things to prove. That is a very different spotlight. And honestly, it might be exactly what she needs. Because the worst thing that can happen to a young player is being crowned too early. When the praise comes before the complete game, every mistake becomes louder. Every bad shooting night becomes evidence. Every ranking becomes a referendum. Every Caitlin Clark comparison becomes impossible to escape. And that is where Reese is now. She is not just battling opponents. She is battling the expectations that were built around her. But here is the fair part. Angel Reese is not finished, not even close. She can still improve. She can still become a better scorer. She can still sharpen her finishing. She can still turn the criticism into fuel. And if she does that, this ESPN moment might one day look like the turning point that forced her to level up. But right now, the reality is clear. The WNBA is moving into a new era, and Caitlin Clark is the center of that storm. Not because people were told to care, because they actually care. That is the difference. The attention around Clark feels organic. It feels loud because the audience made it loud. It feels unavoidable because every game gives people something to argue about. And when one player creates that much energy, the league has to adjust. ESPN has to adjust. The media has to adjust. Even the fans who do not like it have to adjust. That is what this ranking exposed. It exposed the gap between hype and gravity. Angel Reese still has a place in the WNBA story, but Caitlin Clark is the player pulling the league forward right now, and the longer people pretend that is still up for debate, the more obvious the truth becomes, because ESPN did not just rank players, they revealed where the conversation is heading. And right now, that conversation is moving away from forced narratives and toward what fans can see with their own eyes. Angel Reese is still famous. She is still marketable. She is still a name people react to. But Caitlin Clark is different. She is the draw. She is the pressure point. She is the player everyone keeps circling back to. And that is why this moment feels so brutal for Angel Reese, because ESPN did not have to say she was no longer a top WNBA star. The ranking said enough, the reaction said enough, and the Caitlin Clark comparison made the rest impossible to ignore. If you're still watching, drop Clark Effect in the comments.